Back with another 2019 college football team season preview and prediction video. And we only have a handful of these left to do, maybe 3 or 4, get these wrapped up with the season here starting, what's today? Today's Wednesday. 3 days, really. The season starts with week 0, the big Florida versus Miami game. So try to get them wrapped up. Might have to carry a couple of the preview videos into the beginning of next week. But in any case, only have a few left to do. But up today, a team from out west, the Pac-12, Southern Cal. Hey, good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year, and some of them are even watchable. Most of them are entertaining, though, I think. Give this video a thumbs up. If you're not excited about the start of college football season at this point, you're probably just not going to get excited, just a couple of days away. Hit that thumbs up if you're excited. Shout out to Clinton over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. He suggested this Southern Cal video. Clinton, you got it in just in the nick of time, sir. Running out of time to get these previews done. But I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I really appreciate you supporting the channel over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. All right, here we go. Southern Cal. Very disappointing last year. Anybody that paid any attention at all knows that. Listen, Florida State and Southern Cal, you can put them in the same boat. No excuse either one of those teams should be missing a bowl game. The talent that surrounds those two schools, the states that they're in, the level that those two schools have been at over the last, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. No excuse for 5-win seasons, and Southern Cal falls into that category. They were 5-7, 4-5 in the Pac-12. Missed a bowl game for the first time since I think 2000. They also when they also went 5-7. Only good win really on the schedule, Washington State. They ended up being a pretty good team, and you look back and you wonder how Washington State lost that game, but they did. So that was really the only good win that Southern Cal had. Your losses. Stanford, they were just an okay team last year. They were kind of down last year too. Lost to Texas. They ended up being a pretty good team. Lost to Utah, who won the Pac-12 South. Who else did you lose to? Arizona State. No excuse for that. Middle of the road team with a brand new coaching staff. Lost to Cal. That's borderline impossible. Lost to UCLA and Chip Kelly. One of the worst teams in America last year, especially the first half of the season. Then you lost to Notre Dame at the last game of the year, I think that was, but only by 7 points. That might have been the best game you played all year, honestly, was against Notre Dame, coming up short by 7 points. And I'm going to talk more about that game, in particular when we talk about Southern Cal's offense for 2019. But Clay Helton been there 3.5 years, came in the middle of a season at one point, right? So he's been there 3 complete years. First 2 years he was there weren't bad. He won 10 and 11 games respectively. I think he even won the Pac-12 and a Rose Bowl. But last year just completely fell off the map. And unfortunately for Clay Helton, Southern Cal isn't the type of place that's going to put up with very many 5-7 seasons. And they shouldn't have to. If Clay Helton doesn't have a serious turnaround this year, he's out the door. I've been saying for a while now, I think Southern Cal has their eye on Urban Meyer. I don't believe for a second that Urban Meyer is done coaching. If you do, you need to check yourself into a mental hospital. There's nothing wrong with that guy. He's doing the same thing at Ohio State he did at Florida. He'll be back on a sideline at some point. Wouldn't surprise me at all if it was 2020 at Southern Cal, especially if things go sideways this year for the Trojans. Let's talk about Southern Cal's offense. Why did they only win 5 games last year? Well, when you're 9th in scoring in the Pac-12, when you're 10th in rushing in the Pac-12, when you're 6th in passing in the Pac-12, and 10th in total offense in the Pac-12, probably going to win about 5 games. That's what you did. When you have a -10 turnover margin for the season, 120th in America, you're probably going to win about 5 games. That's what you did. What'd you do to try to address those problems? Well, you bring in offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. Oh yeah, he's gone. Forgot about that. He dipped on you for a meaningless NFL job. Good luck with that. He's not going to last long there either. So you bring in Graham Harrell. Graham Harrell from the Mike Leach tree. This is where things get interesting to me if you're a Southern Cal fan. He comes from the Mike Leach sort of system, right? Is Southern Cal about to go to an air raid offense? I think maybe they are. You got Graham Harrell, right? Quarterback JT Daniels. Started 10 or 11 games last year as a true freshman. Very up and down, very inconsistent, which you might expect from a true freshman quarterback. But let's talk about that last game against Notre Dame. You lost 24-17, I think the final score was. I know it was a 7-point game. If it wasn't 24-17, it was somewhere in that range. That was a different Southern Cal team than we saw most of the year. Southern Cal decided to air it out in that game. At halftime, JT Daniels was 26 of 31. He threw 31 passes in the first half. Air raid on deck this year, I think. That seemed to be the most successful that Southern Cal's offense looked all of last season. It seemed natural. JT Daniels seemed comfortable running sort of a quick passing attack. 31 passes in one half. Now you bring in Graham Harrell as offensive coordinator. I think we're getting ready to see Southern Cal air it out this year. And after looking over, who they lost, who they have coming back, where some of the strong points are on his offense, that may be a pretty good idea. Wide receivers, Michael Pittman Jr., Tyler Vaughns, and then this third guy, what is this? Amon-Ra St. Brown. It sounds like the bad guy from a Mortal Kombat video game. But these are three absolute stud wide receivers. Probably the best position group on your team. Maybe defensive line too. But elite wide receivers, this may not be a bad idea if this is what Southern Cal is going to do, is let JT Daniels throw the ball 40 or 45 times a game. We'll see. Running backs, I don't like Southern Cal's running backs from purely a running back perspective. I'll just be honest. I don't think either one of them are all that elite. This Carr is one of them. What's the other one's name? Malapai. Again, I don't know. I don't speak Hawaiian, and I didn't name these people. It's just my job to try to pronounce it wrong, which I think I've succeeded there. But they can catch the ball out of the backfield. Both of these guys are great pass catchers out of the backfield. That goes hand in hand. That fits well with this Graham Harrell hired offensive coordinator, and all signs pointing towards Southern Cal really opening up the pass game in 2019. In order to do that, though, the offensive line is going to have to play a lot better than it did last year. They gave up 27 sacks last year. And again, I mentioned that they were 10th in rushing in the Pac-12, 107th nationally. Even if you're going to air it out and throw the ball like that, you've still got to be able to run the ball at least enough to keep defenses honest. You can't have defenses sitting back in 8-man coverages on 1st and 10 all the time because they know you can't run the ball. So the offensive line has got to do a better job on first downs, I think, of opening up some holes for these running backs. They got to protect JT Daniels better, again, giving up 27 sacks last year. If they can do that and they can sort of go with the recipe they had in the first half against Notre Dame, I think Southern Cal's offense could be a whole lot better in 2019 than what we saw in 2018. Again, JT Daniels has a year of experience under his belt now. The style of offense it looks like they're going to play this year seems to be what fits JT Daniels the best based on his performance against Notre Dame. Reason to be optimistic about Southern Cal's offense, I think. Let's look at the defense here. They're trying to simplify the defense this year. We'll see if they can do it. Last year, in the Pac-12, 8th in scoring defense, 9th in rushing defense, 5th in pass defense, 7th in total defense. Again, you look at those numbers, and you probably would guess whoever's numbers those were, won about 5 games, and that's what Southern Cal did. All of these numbers have got to get a lot better. Defensive line, I think, is the strength of the defense, like I mentioned earlier. They have more talent on the defensive line than they can play at one time. They've got some great defensive linemen, defensive tackles, defensive ends, some rush ends. They'll be one of these teams that's able to rotate players in and out in sort of a situational basis. They've got the talent along the defensive front to do that. At linebacker, you lose 2 starters. Got some young guys there, a couple of guys with some experience, but it's going to be sort of a learn on the go type of thing the first couple of weeks with the linebackers losing those 2 starters from last year. Defensive backs, very young here. Half the scholarship players on Southern Cal's roster, half the defensive backs, half the corners anyway, are true freshmen. Greg Johnson's the only cornerback with any starting experience, so he'll be on one side. We'll see what you do on the other side. Safety, this Hafanga guy, whatever his name is, I think this guy's going to be really, really good this year. He was 5th on the team in tackles last year, and that was with only starting 5 games. And I think he only played in 10 or 11 games. So he'll be a full-time starter this year. He should be even better year 2. He's a legit player, but you got to find 2 or 3 pieces there in the defensive backfield. You got to find some linebackers. I really, really like the defensive line. All right, let's throw the schedule up on the screen. We'll take a look at it. We'll try to figure out what kind of overall record Southern Cal might have this year. Can they rebound from this terrible, disappointing 5-7 season from last year? Can they make a bowl game? Can they possibly contend for a Pac-12 South title or maybe even the Pac-12? Open up with a non-con game at home against Fresno State. I'm going to give you a win here, but it seems like Fresno State likes to beat a Pac-12 team every year, doesn't it? I don't know. It just seems like they give you guys some trouble from time to time. Don't let this be one of those times. Like I said, you got some O-line issues. You better have them worked out here. Fresno State, no slouch. They shouldn't be competing with Southern Cal, though. I'm going to give you a win. You start 1-0. Week 2, Stanford. To me, this is truly a 50-50 game that could go either way. I'm really not comfortable or confident picking this game one way or the other. Of course, I have to pick a winner and a loser with these preview videos. I was disappointed in Stanford last year, too. I have more confidence, though, in the ability of Southern Cal to improve this year than I do Stanford. For one thing, Southern Cal was way worse last year. So, when you win 5 games, it's easier to improve than Stanford, where they win 8 or something or 9, whatever it was. Still a little disappointing. You get them at home. I'm going to give you a big win here week 2. You start the ACC schedule off 1-0. But again, this is a tough game to call here. I really like KJ Costello out at Stanford at quarterback. He's probably a little bit better right now than JT Daniels. Now, we'll see how JT Daniels performs this year in this new offense. But looking forward right now, I think if you were going to rank some of the Pac-12 quarterbacks, you would have KJ Costello, I think, obviously ahead of JT Daniels. That obviously could change this year. I like David Shaw, like the style of football that he runs. They're going to have a pretty good offensive line. They're going to play sound defense. This is going to be a good game here. I'm giving Southern Cal the win. Then you go on the road and you play BYU. Come back home, play Utah. I think that's your first loss. I think you're going to lose to Utah. I've picked Utah to win the Pac-12 South. I'm a believer in Utah this year. Kyle Whittingham, it's nothing short of amazing. You look at what Kyle Whittingham is doing at Utah, and then you look at what Clay Helton is doing at Southern Cal, and you tell me which of those two is a better coach. I think you lose this one, even though it's at home, to Utah. Brutal games back-to-back here. Southern Cal's got a tough schedule this year. They draw some tough teams from the North, from the Pac-12 North. At Washington, loss. I've picked Washington to win the Pac-12 North. I don't think you're going on the road and beating Chris Peterson and the Washington Huskies. I think Jacob Eason's going to have a huge year there at quarterback for the Washington Huskies. They've got a lot of pieces to replace. They need a running back to replace Gaskin. Eason making his first-year starter at Washington, although he's got a year of experience at Georgia from back in 2016. I think you lose back-to-back games there. You come out of that, you have a bye week, get 2 bye weeks this year. More on that in a minute. You really screwed up your bye week situation, didn't you? Yeah, you did. But you got a bye week, got to come out of that, man, you got to go on the road and play Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame's going to be as good as they were last year, but I don't think you're beating them there. I think Notre Dame probably goes 10-2 this year, possibly 9-3, but I don't think you're beating them there on the road at Notre Dame. I like what I've seen from Ian Book more than what I've seen so far from JT Daniels. Again, with an asterisk there, let's see what JT Daniels does this year with this new air raid offense that it looks like we're getting ready to see at Southern Cal. But I don't see you winning on the road at Notre Dame. Then you got a home game against Arizona. I give you a win there. Arizona and Arizona State are the same team to me. They're going to win 6 or 7 games, most likely. They're going to beat somebody you don't expect them to beat. And they're going to have a pretty forgettable season. It just seems like that's what they do year in and year out. You get Arizona at home, I'm giving you a win. On the road at Colorado, I give you a win again. New head coach there, Mel Tucker, comes from Georgia, was defensive coordinator. Outside of that, Chenault, that wide receiver they have, who's probably one of the top 2 or 3 wide receivers in America, I don't think they have a whole lot to work with there. You got to find a way to slow that guy down. He is the type of guy that can win a game by himself. Him, Rondale Moore at Purdue. There's a handful of players that can sort of take over a game like that. He's one of them. If you don't find a way to lock him down or at least limit what he does to you, that one could get away. I don't see it happening, even though you got to go on the road to Boulder to play this one. I give you a win. Come back home, play Oregon. You draw Washington and Oregon from the North, the 2 best teams up there. I think Oregon beats you. I think Oregon's a really good team, going to win probably 10-plus games again this year. I did pick them to come up a game short in terms of winning the North, a game short to Washington, but Washington and Oregon both really, really good teams. Justin Herbert, again, one of the 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the Pac-12 that's better than JT Daniels, at least right now. After that, you go on the road at Arizona State. Loss. I mentioned when I talked about the Arizona schools a minute ago, they beat somebody you don't expect them to beat. This year, that's you. You're going to lose on the road at Arizona State. Another road game at Cal. I'm giving you a win there. Don't know how you lost to them last year. Please don't do it 2 years in a row. That's an embarrassment and a humiliation. Last game of the season here, sort of a city rivalry game, UCLA. I'm giving you a win over Chip Kelly. Again, a team that beat you last year. I think you reversed that this year with back-to-back wins over Cal and UCLA to close out your season, because your second bye week is the last week of the season. It's ridiculous. Put your bye week in the season somewhere. Does you no good there. Trust me, Southern Cal, you don't need a bye week before the Pac-12 championship game. I promise you that. You don't. You have a bye week the day of the Pac-12 championship game. Anyway, that puts you at 7-5 and 5-4 in the Pac-12. That's not acceptable for Southern Cal. If I'm Southern Cal, I'm getting rid of Clay Helton. This is just ridiculous. You can't be at Southern Cal and over a 2-year period only win 12 games. That's unacceptable. I think they should get rid of Clay Helton. I think he's in over his head. Him and Willie Taggart both at Florida State. Willie Taggart just has no clue what he's doing. But anyway, Florida State fans will figure that out here pretty soon. They're still denying it right now. 5 stages of grief type of thing. But anyway, hats off to the Trojans. They improved from 5-7 to 7-5. Whee! Have a good morning.